Welcome back, everybody, for this final block of the show. I'm looking forward to bringing in a very sound legal mind and expert on all things taxes, the chairman of Americans for Fair Taxation, Steve Hayes. Steve, thank you so much for joining me.
Amanda, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure, and I wanted to ask you straight out the gate about this Family Security Act 2.0 that Republicans in the Senate have proposed. During the COVID era, we had these monthly child tax credits between, I think, $250 and $300 per child. That expired in December, but you've got a gaggle of Republicans proposing the restart of it. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's too little too late. In one sense, I mean, what they're trying to do is give people something. And right now, everybody needs some help, at least in the middle class area. Why? Because we've got a big inflation. We've got somebody going out to buy or lease a car either way is going to pay about twice as much as they were paying last year in interest. So you've got a big thing, and the idea is we're going to give a Band-Aid. We're not going to fix the system. We're not going to fix the economy. We're just going to pour more money in, which is actually not going to really help long term because there's an end to this. And when you have inflation eroding a person making $60,000 a year, at the end of the year is only going to have the purchasing power of about $55,000, maybe even lower, depending on how they spend their money. It's just not a very sensible idea. When you don't need the present system, you can go to a much fairer, cleaner system easily, and that's the fair tax.
Yeah. Well, as a tax-paying citizen, it doesn't seem like it's ever about fixing it. It's always either dumping fuel on the fire or putting a Band-Aid on a compound fracture. It never seems to be about fixing it. I do think, however, under President Trump, with tax cuts, that there were some steps made in a better direction. Talk to us about the dichotomy between President Trump's tax policies and President Biden's.
Well, President Trump believed that you and I were smart enough to know what to do with our money. He wanted to put it back in our hands so that we could decide. President Biden has a totally different idea. He doesn't believe people like you and I, Amanda, and most of your audience, can really think for themselves well enough to decide what's best to do with the money. And in fact, the more government control he can exert, he thinks it's for our benefit because, after all, we're not as smart as they are in DC. And that's just a fundamental philosophical difference. Who do you want to control your life? Do you want government to control it? Do you want to give all your money to them and beg for something back? Or do you want to take your money, decide what to do with it for yourself? Fundamental difference just between how Biden views people and how Trump viewed people.
Yeah, and I think our founding fathers definitely believed that the American citizens knew better how to spend their money and exercise their freedoms.
Right.
And we have moved very far away from that. I wanted to ask you about a very concerning story to a lot of Americans that came out earlier this year, maybe the end of last year, that the IRS was hiring thousands upon thousands more new IRS agents. And I don't know about you, but I don't want any more IRS eyeballs on my taxes. Is this a concern?
No. Of course it's a concern because you've hit it right. And the other problem is you're hiring people who, some of them can't spell tax. You're giving them 2 weeks of training, and then you're telling them to go out and look at tax returns and make decisions. It's absolute idiocy. The whole system is absolute idiocy. We don't need an income tax. We don't need audits. We don't need the IRS. And yes, it is very concerning. You are 100% correct to be concerned. And it's something that is absolutely destroying a lot of what made America great. And that is this idea we're going to use the tax system to control people, and we're going to hire all these people that don't know what they're doing to enforce it.
Yeah, and sadly, we've seen these reports that the IRS is literally years behind in issuing tax refunds and returns from filings from 2019, 2020, and yet Congress wants to heap more responsibilities onto the IRS. I wanted to get your take on that utter disaster.
Well, my whole thing is follow the money. Where does Congress make a lot of its money for campaigns. They get it from lobbyists who get it from special interest groups. As long as you have an IRS and an income tax, a member of Congress is guaranteed they're going to get a lot of donations from those special interests. Why? To try to get an advantage to make you and I pay for a benefit for them. So I think if you follow the money, you'll see that's really what's going on. And also, if they have the income tax there, they feel like they can keep people like us a bit under control, because they can say, we're going to go after you, Amanda. We're going to send one of our new untrained people out to do an audit and assess a lot of money in income taxes on you. And you're going to have to spend your money, your time, in trying to prove to us that we're wrong. They love it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incumbent upon us to prove that we are good, honest,
Yes.
contributory citizens, and it's disgusting. Steve, before we go, tell everybody where they can find out more about Americans for Fair Taxation.
Absolutely. At fairtax.org, a retail sales tax, eliminating the income tax, and eliminating audits, and eliminating all of this idea that the government gets their hands on your money before you do. You get your money, and then you decide how much tax you pay at the register.
Incredible. Steve Hayes, Chairman for Americans for Fair Taxation. We appreciate you joining us.
Amanda, I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And sometimes I don't like talking about taxes because Proverbs tells us that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and I don't like to speak things into existence when it comes to the IRS, but you got to cover the news. That is it for us tonight. I will be back tomorrow and the rest of the week, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Real America's Voice.